All right, let's take you live now to Taipei, where U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is meeting with Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen and received an award from the island's government. Let's listen in.
台湾的领导阶层给我彰显的许多非常热诚的友谊，我也看到许多美国在台湾的侨民都非常的兴奋，看到我们的到来。的确，1999年我那次来访的时候也学到很多，我们也在立法的殿堂当中也致力了非常多，许多亚裔美国人，还有说去跟台湾之间发展更多紧密的贸易关系等的许多的工作，我们都持续的在推展。这些工作的推展能够开启更多的可能性，让我们能够有更多的机会互相学习，这就是我们的来意，互相学习。而且呢，除了互相学习之外，还获得了非常美丽的奖章，大受青云勋章，非常感谢总统。
接下来进行合影，请总统、副总统、裴洛西议长、AIT 处长及各位众议员合影。
Madam President, Mr. Vice President, Madam Speaker, distinguished members of the House of Representatives, please come together for a group photo.
All right, if you're just joining us, we are live out of Taipei. You're seeing U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi right there. The zoom in on her. She's standing right next to Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen. Earlier, she received an award from the island's government as well. Ms. Pelosi, of course, arrived in Taipei last night.
We now welcome our guests to join us for a group photo.
All American and Taiwanese delegates you are looking at right now are gathered for a group photo. Earlier in the day, local media says Ms. Pelosi had 2 meetings with President Tsai Ing-wen. She also met with lawmakers, members of the island's 4 main political parties, and she also gave a speech. As you know, Nancy Pelosi is the highest-ranking American official to visit Taiwan in 25 years, and this trip has infuriated Beijing, saying it violates the One China principle because it sees Taiwan as part of the mainland.
This concludes the ceremony.
请参加会谈贵宾前往红厅，其余贵宾于大礼堂稍后。
Madam President, Madam Speaker, and other participating officials in the bilateral dialogue will now proceed to the next venue. All other guests will remain in the reception hall. Thank you.
You were just watching live pictures out of Taipei, where U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has met with Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen. Earlier, she also met with other lawmakers and political parties in Taipei. Taiwan has slammed China's drills around the island. That has come amid Ms. Pelosi's visit, saying it shows intention to destroy regional peace and stability. China launched a series of military operations around Taiwan late last night. State TV showed jets taking off. The military warned it will safeguard China's sovereignty against so-called people who visit Taiwan with malicious intentions.
这次联合军事行动是针对美和台当局在台湾问题上的危险举动所采取的必要举措，战区组织多军兵种部队成体系、全要素展开，进行联合封控、对海突击、对陆打击、制空作战等多科目针对性演练和精导武器的实弹射击。
State news agency Xinhua said Beijing will conduct missile tests, 4 days of live firing drills and other exercises around Taiwan starting tomorrow. It adds that unauthorized ships and aircraft will be barred from entering the area during this period. China has also announced it will suspend the entry of certain food products from the island from today. These include citrus fruit and 2 types of fish. Export of natural sand to Taiwan will also be suspended. That's on top of an export ban on more than 100 Taiwanese brands that Beijing announced on Monday ahead of Ms. Pelosi's visit. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi has condemned the visit, saying that it seriously violates the One China principle and seriously harms China's sovereignty. He saw it as proof, once again, that some U.S. politicians have become the troublemakers of China-U.S. relations and the U.S. #1 saboteur of peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait. He says the U.S. must stop obstructing China's great reunification, manipulating the game of geopolitics, and arbitrarily confusing right and wrong, insisting the most basic fact is that the U.S. provoked China on the Taiwan question. Washington is standing by the speaker's visit, but it believes that the fallout will continue even after Ms. Pelosi leaves Taiwan.
China has positioned itself to take further steps, and we expect that they will continue to react over a longer-term horizon. I couldn't give you a date certain of what that horizon looks like, but we certainly would expect them to react even beyond her trip, including announcing additional large-scale live-fire exercises. Of course, they've already started doing some of that today, flying across the median line. We've seen press reports of them doing that today, and using economic coercion.
Olivia Xiong in Beijing tells us more about China's response to U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan.
Certainly, once Ms. Pelosi landed in Taipei last night, we saw Chinese military immediately come out to say that it is on high alert and announcing those military drills around Taiwan, including a long-range fire drill and a live-fire conventional missile drill. And I believe we have a map of where these military exercises are taking place, and you will be able to see that these live-fire drills, as the military has announced, are basically surrounding the Taiwan island, and it's something that analysts had said is something that Beijing could do as it has stepped up its military activity in the lead up to Ms. Pelosi's trip. Now, there have been also comparisons drawn with the 1995-96 Taiwan Straits crisis, when then Taiwanese president had drawn closer to Taiwan independence. And analysts are also saying that it is likely that China this time round will react more strongly. Back then, we had seen Taiwan fire several missiles into the Taiwan Strait, but this time they're saying that, more than 20 years later, China is different. Its military has modernized. Also, the timing is especially sensitive ahead of that key Communist Party Congress that we're expecting later in the fall, where Chinese President Xi Jinping is going after an unprecedented third term in power. So China would not want to look weak on the international stage as well as domestically. And so experts are saying that China will have to give a very strong reaction to Ms. Pelosi's visit.
Victoria Jen has more on how the public in Taiwan is responding to the controversial visit.
Public opinions over Pelosi's visit remain divided. Some pro-reunification supporters staged a protest outside Pelosi's hotel Tuesday, accusing her of attempting to cause more tensions across the Taiwan Strait and possibly lead to military confrontation. Now, at the same time, those who support pro-independence welcome her visit, saying that her presence has brought Taiwan-U.S. relations to a whole new level. But what's interesting is that I have spoken to some young people who don't really think Pelosi's visit to Taiwan is a good idea. They see the visit as a provocative move to Beijing, which has issued stern warnings that its military would not sit idly by. And these young Taiwanese fear that Taiwan could end up paying the price, because especially if they would have to go to battle if military conflict breaks out.
Well, ASEAN chair Cambodia says the bloc will be forced to rethink its 5-point consensus if Myanmar continues to execute more political prisoners. Prime Minister Hun Sen made this remark at the opening ceremony of the ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting in Phnom Penh. Mr. Hun Sen says ASEAN is disappointed by Myanmar's recent move to execute 4 political prisoners. Top diplomats from the bloc will start a series of meetings later today. Philippines Foreign Secretary Enrique Manalo although skipping the talks because of COVID-19, Myanmar is not invited. Naypyidaw also declined to send a non-regime representative. The diplomats will have a range of pressing issues to talk about, and it comes as U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's Taiwan visit makes global headlines. Fears are that military tensions will escalate on the Taiwan Strait. Joining us live is our correspondent Leong Wai-kit from Phnom Penh. Wai-kit, some strong words there from Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen about Myanmar. What are we expecting from the talks?
Yeah, you said it, strong words. I was in the same ballroom when Prime Minister Hun Sen delivered those remarks. Of course, I was tuning into the live English translations, but simultaneously, you can hear the firmness in Mr. Hun Sen's voice and his tone when he said he was disappointed, especially since he had tried to intervene and appealed to Myanmar army to not go ahead with the executions. This is indeed a departure of Cambodia's usual friendly and supportive tone when talking about Myanmar. So perhaps this will set the stage for talks later on today and narrow down specifically what might be discussed among the ASEAN foreign ministers, the 5-point consensus. Now, many observers have long slammed that this peace plan is weak because it doesn't have definitions as well as timelines to resolve the Myanmar crisis. Now, on Myanmar's side of the story, Army Chief Min Aung Hlaing had recently said that the reason that the 5-point consensus couldn't be rolled out last year was because of COVID-19 as well as instability in the country. Now, one observer pointed out that perhaps this is Min Aung Hlaing's way to tell ASEAN to not doubt his good faith.
Wai-kit, Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan appears to be casting a shadow over the meeting. Has anyone made remarks about the situation?
Well, I must say this is a hot topic with cold responses. So far, many ASEAN foreign ministers have politely sidestepped questions, even though I tried to ask them directly. They have politely declined to answer. The latest we have, of course, is this morning during the media briefing, I asked whether Cambodia is aware of any planned meetings between China and US while they're in Phnom Penh, whether formally or informally, and the answer is no. And Cambodia says, of course, that ASEAN remains to be a platform for both parties to come together if they find that ASEAN is a good platform for them to resolve their differences. And understandably, ASEAN foreign ministers here would want to sidestep these questions because observers point out that they will not want to be caught in the power struggle, if I could use the word, because they don't want to be caught in between growing competitive and confrontational ties between the US and China.
Wai-kit, thank you very much for that update. Leong Wai-kit reporting for us live from Phnom Penh.